I'm Steve Wilkerson, and I'm with Jim Saunders, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. Jim, things are kind of quiet in Tallahassee in the state government arena after the reorganization session. One area of discussion, however, is what Governor Scott is planning in terms of turnover among several key agencies heading into his second term. What are you hearing?
Well, I think there's a lot of expectation. There's going to be a lot of activity. As we speak, Department of Corrections Secretary Mike Cruz has announced that he is resigning, leaving the agency. The Department of Corrections has been a really controversial place for about 6 or 8 months now. There's been a lot of issues about inmate abuse, cover-ups, those sorts of things. Cruz has taken a really hard stand on that. He's tried to ferret out some of these issues that have been in the prison system for years. But it looks like he's stepping down, not going to be there for Governor Scott's second term. So that's going to be a big appointment for the governor. Not only are there these sort of controversies within the prison system, but they've also run some budget deficits in the past couple of years. So there's a fiscal angle to this too. It's not an easy agency to run.
No, it's not.
Governor Scott's had 3 corrections secretaries in 4 years, so that's kind of an indication of how that's a pretty tough job.
Well, there's also another really tough job, Department of Children and Family.
There are 2 interim secretaries I think it's going to be interesting to watch to see what happens. At Department of Children and Families, interim Secretary Mike Carroll, and at the Department of Juvenile Justice, Christy Daly is the interim secretary. I mean, the governor's going to have to do something about those 2 positions. Either make them permanent or you find replacements.
Both tough jobs.
Both tough jobs. And DCF is somewhat similar to Department of Corrections in that he's had 3 secretaries. Carroll's an interim, but I mean, he's been there for several months. So, the governor's had some turnover in that job. There's been some horrible controversies within the Department of Corrections Department of Children and Families regarding children's deaths. It is, has to be one of the toughest jobs in state government. It's a no-win job in a lot of circumstances. Department of Juvenile Justice too is, it's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but it doesn't get a ton of attention, but it's got some issues. It's got fiscal issues right now, and so that appointment's going to be interesting to watch as well.
Is there discussion about the Department of Environmental Protection?
There's a lot of rumors flying around, and at this point we haven't substantiated them, but that Herschel Vineyard, the Secretary of Department of Environmental Protection, might look to go back to the private sector in the governor's second term. Again, I do not know that it's happening, but there is a lot of speculation. He came from the private sector, and I think it's kind of natural at this point after the first term that there is people going in and out. We also saw it with the governor's top staff members. He has a new chief of staff, Melissa Sellers, who was his campaign manager and also had previously been his director of communications. She is now his chief of staff, replacing Adam Hollingsworth, who was in that position for a couple of years. He's moved in a new communications director. So there's a lot of within his executive office as well. There's turnover going on, and I think that's fairly natural as move into the second term.
Well, there's an old maxim in human resources: personnel is policy.
Well, it is, and I think it actually helps a little bit, freshen things up. As you go forward for another 4 years, and this is a good sort of break time to do it.
Well, there are many players trying to vie right now for projected excess revenue over expense in the next state budget, fiscal year 2015 through 2016, but forecasts are not as rosy going into the 2015 legislative session as they were going into the 2014 session, right?
It was really interesting to listen to the new Senate President, Andy Gardner, during the organization session, during his speech. He made a point that essentially they have $336 million in available revenue for the 15-16 year. That's taking into account sort of the expected expenditures and then how much money they're expecting to have come in. Sounds like a lot of money to you or me, but it is not as much as they had to play with last year. And he sort of made a point during his speech that, you know, there's going to have to be some tough decisions even at that level. We've started to see already bills being filed, for instance, for tax breaks, tax cuts. You know, the Governor Scott campaigned heavily. He's campaigned ever since he started running for office more than 4 years ago for tax cuts. But, you know, he's going to be out there pushing for tax cuts. There's going to be competing interests seeking that $336 million. Among the bills that have already been filed are to cut the corporate income tax, which has been from day one of the Scott campaign and administration. It's been one of his priorities. Another one would reduce a tax on commercial leases, which some parts of the business community are very strong on. So you've got some of those issues, and then you're going to have demands on the you know, from programs wanting more money. So it's
already adding to more than $336 million.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's not unusual.
Yeah.
People always come in and want more than they're going to get, and so on.